Ding dong. Do you like magic? Are you a weeb? Well, I've got something for you. Lord of Mysteries, the latest light novel to be turned into a Chinese cartoon. I can't stop glazing this light novel. But that's not the purpose of this video. If you want to learn about the lore or the world, there are plenty of other YouTube videos that are going to do that way better. What I want to talk about is how esoteric Lord of Mysteries is. Because it's not just that the author, filled with autism, decided to make a working monetary system, or a working calendar, or a complete history for his setting which spans over 5 epochs, with different gods, heroes, and noble houses. No, I want to talk about how esoteric this gets. Because I was reading it, right? I'm reading this story, and there's one bit where Klein, the main character, is talking to another person, and they need to communicate secretly. So he says, you should use a set of knocks. And he tells her to knock on this door 3 times, as a kind of a sign, so he knows what's up. And the knocks he uses, when I read the description, I was like, oh my god, bro, that's like one of the degrees in Freemasonry uses those exact same knocks. And I'm like, how does an autistic Chinese guy know about the Western tradition? And the more I read, that caught my attention. And so the more I read, the more I was like, wait a second. So basically, I want to point out some of the main pieces of the Western esoteric tradition that Cuttlefish, the author, put in Lord of Mysteries. So, first things first, let's talk about Cabala. You know who liked Cabala? The Golden Dawn liked Cabala. You know who was a member of the Golden Dawn? Dion Fortune. In her book, The Mystical Cabala, she talks about the spheres of the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, and connects them to different dimensions. And the dimensions she connects to also connects to different bodies that the human being has. So to describe this, think of it like you live in the physical world and you have a physical body, but if there was a higher dimension, a 4th dimension, it's not like the 4th dimension is separate from the 3 dimension, they're connected. You just can't see it. And to a degree, you yourself would have a 4th dimensional aspect. This aspect of yourself would just be occulted to you. If this is kind of sounding a bit highfalutin, just, read the book Flatlanders. There's a great bit in that story where a sphere is trying to talk to a circle, and they have a great little dialogue on the inner eye, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In Hermetic Cabala, there are worlds that correspond to the spheres. Malkuth is the physical world. Yesod is sometimes seen as the vital world, or the etheric world. Hod, depending on which system you use, it can change, but Hod for Dion Fortune is the mental world. So all of your thoughts and feelings correspond to this dimension. Whereas the etheric world corresponds more to your life force itself. If you were able to see into the etheric world, you could see how long someone has left to live. If you are able to see into the mental world, you would be able to see or perceive a person's thoughts. Now the next sphere up is Netzach, the astral world. And above the astral world is Tipref, the causal world, or the world of soul. So in this case, a human being is an overlaying of forces, or can be described, bifurcated into these 5 aspects. The physical body, the etheric body, the mental body, the astral body, and the soul or causal body. So what's this got to do with Lord of Mysteries? Well, in Lord of Mysteries, he uses this exact same structure for his universe. So Klein, the main character, is taught about different bodies, or parts of an occult anatomy that humans have. They have a physical body, an etheric body, a body called the heart-mind body, which I was like, Then there's an astral body, okay. And then, of course, there's the soul body or spirit body. And when I saw that, I was like, I had my attention on it, and I was like, it seems like Mr. Cuttlefish is using this Kabbalistic structure as a backbone for his system, for his universe. And if you know anything about the Western tradition, you know that Cabala, as a structure, a lot of its principles then flow into the way ceremonial magic is done. Ceremonial magic is structured on the principles of Cabala. Well, lo and behold, in Lord of Mysteries, there's a lot of ceremonial and ritual magic. And it's interesting, there's an Evernite goddess, and if you want to do a ritual with her, you need maybe silver talismans and certain colored candles and a certain incense. Whereas if you want to work with the eternal blazing sun god, then you need, gold on your altar. You need a certain incense and certain colored candles, perhaps. And when I noticed this, I was like, oh my god. This is literally sympathetic magic, taught by the Western tradition. In the Western tradition, if you want to work with Saturn, you need your black candles, burn a particular incense, have an obsidian stone on your altar. If you want to work with the sun, have some gold there, burn some frankincense. Work with Mars, have some iron ore with red candles, burn some myrrh as incense. So when reading the description of ceremonial magic and how it's performed, yes, the actioning of it and the representation of it is different, obviously. But while reading this, I was like, oh my god, this guy's basically using the concepts of Western ceremonial magic, the principle of sympathy, as a functional system in his fantasy world. And then off the back of this, there are all of these other magic things, certain divination techniques, using dream divination, pendulum divination, mirror divination, and I'm like, oh my god, bro, someone's done their homework, and it's wild. It's wild to just see this appreciation, because usually when people have Western magic, it's just, a wizard shooting fireballs or something. It's like, no, this guy, actually studied Western books of magic, Western systems, then got this kind of cool Victorian steampunk aesthetic, and then wrapped it up in a story that's basically an isekai cultivation fantasy. And you know what? It works. It actually just works. Now we have to talk about the most autistic aspects of the Lord of Mysteries, the power system. In other pieces of media, the power systems can get quite complicated, and there can be different paths within a power system. So say Avatar The Last Airbender has, the 4 elements. So you could say there's 4 different paths of development, with maybe some advanced branches later on. And you could say, yeah, it's expansive, it's complicated, it's something to chew on, but it's nowhere near as detailed and elaborate as, say, the Hunter x Hunter Nen system. I mean, to a degree, you could even say the Hunter x Hunter Nen system is 6 different power systems wrapped in one. That's what makes it kind of impressive and kind of fun, and you want to learn more about it and you want to see more of the series, not just for the overarching story, but also to understand more of the power system itself, to have more of that revealed to you. But in Lord of Mysteries, he's literally... It's like he's gotten 22 different power systems. 22 based off of the major arcana of the tarot. And he's got 22 different power systems running at the same time. And it's really fun because they're not balanced at all. So let me back up here. The 22 paths of the divine consists of alchemical potions. So he's including alchemy in his system now. So you got Western ceremonial magic, Western metaphysics, and Western alchemy. It includes these alchemical potions that once drunk give you powers. So one path will have 9 potions, numbered 9 to 1, 9 being weakest and number 1 being the strongest. And you can't just jump straight to number 1. You have to drink number 9, digest it, slowly, then drink number 8, digest it, slowly, then drink number 7, and slowly make your way through this path of the divine. And you can't really drink 2 potions at the same time, or instant death, or madness. You can't really change your path unless it's under certain conditions. But the paths themselves are interesting. Specifically the archetypes and correspondences he has on these paths. And although there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of... It's really interesting the choices he makes. And at first, a lot of the choices he makes and the symbolism he uses seems almost arbitrary. What the hell are you doing? Why? It's almost random. There's a potion called the Monster Potion, but it has to do with fate and having visions. And then the next potion after that is called Robot, and you're like, what? Huh? But it makes sense. I swear to God it makes sense. And this is where things get really interesting, because the names of the potions have this very interesting depth and correspondence to them, which is where we have to talk about in the series this thing called the acting method. Because how you digest a potion is important. Remember, these potions are alchemical, and it's actually said that there's a little psychic quality in the potion, almost like the potion is alive. So when you absorb it into yourself, you as a human go through a qualitative change, and you gain certain powers. But what dictates your ability to move to the next potion, this digestion, requires you to act in a certain way. And the reason behind it is interesting. Because the potion, in a way, is alive, when you act a certain way, it's described as if you are psychically aligning your mind with the psychical structure within the potion. So that foreign quality, that magical quality, that beyond a characteristic, it's like it sits in you, better balanced. It truly becomes a part of you. Whereas if you don't act in that way, it can take years and years and years, or even you can just go your whole life as a Sequence 9 simp, cuck, and never progress. Now let's go deeper when we talk about the acting method, because what does it mean to act? In essence, when you're acting, you're following a pattern of being. What does that mean? Well, a thing is what it does. If someone says they're a boxer, but they sit on the couch all day and they never hit a boxing bag, they're not a boxer. Another person may not be a professional, but the fact that they know how to punch and they hit a bag every day makes them more of a boxer than the first guy. A thing is what it does. And so with the acting method, it's not just about you drink a potion, become a Beyonder, and then you start using your magical powers. And the more you use your powers, the more the potion digests. It's a little more subtle, because you think you know. Like, you see some of the potion names: seer, lawyer, warrior, hunter. But some of the other names can be a little more metaphorical, as I've mentioned, like monster or prisoner. How do you act as a prisoner? Does that mean you force yourself to commit a crime so that you go to jail and that helps digest your potion? Does being in a jail cell, just sitting there in a jail cell, digest your potion? Is that what a prisoner is? Or perhaps someone who is trapped in a job which they can't seem to quit, or trapped in a relationship. Is this kind of person also a prisoner? So you can see how there's something more metaphorical. Begin to see that it's not just, I drink potion, I gain powers, I use powers, and then the more powers I use, the more XP I get and I level up. No, it is this subtlety. So you can see the key to acting is to draw a new philosophy or ethos out of the name of the specific potion you drink. So the names actually have this deep meaning. There's a deep archetypal structure behind each name that is slowly unveiled to the individual Beyonder as they themselves slowly try to act, try to aim, try to derive principles from the archetype. This helps them psychically align to the latent powers within them. The final effect being digestion, which allows them to go to the next stage, to drink another potion and go through a new qualitative change. There's something very esoteric in this, something very valuable, I think, to take away from this. Because it's not just cool to see in a phenomenological or psychological sense, to follow a narrative where this person goes through all of these changes, and each change he goes through, he slowly loses pieces of his humanity. And you see the way his thinking changes until he basically becomes something more like a mythical creature than an actual human. But all through the series, there's this constant warning from characters about the acting method. Yes, you know, the acting method can accelerate your path, but if you lose yourself in the acting, there is a great danger there. Never forget that you're just acting, they say. And I thought that was really interesting because, straight up too, on the spiritual path, many people wax poetical about false consciousness and identity and ego, but they don't actually do the work. They end up just imitating what they think a spiritual person is like. And because they act in a certain way, and because this acting gives an appearance to other people, they get a certain feedback and they begin to delude themselves into thinking they truly are enlightened, they truly are spiritual. Happens all the time. Whether you're Christian or Buddhist, you see it all the time. And it's very interesting because, you know, in Lord of Mysteries, when people fail to digest their potion, they act wrongly. What happens? They end up going insane and turning into monsters. What happens in real life when someone fails at acting on the spiritual path and they forget that they're just acting and they fall into this identity? Even talking about ego death, no ego. They fall into the identity of not having an ego. And if they're not egoic, then when something goes wrong, then it can't be them. It has to be other people. It has to be you. Not me. Losing themselves in this way, they slowly warp, and it's like they become less and less human. They gain their wish. They wanted to be spiritual. Unfortunately, demons are also spirits, eh? In their own way, many so-called gurus and spiritual teachers become monsters and tyrannize their students. But we're getting a bit dark now, and we should get back to glazing Lord of Mysteries, which is what this video is all about. If you haven't already, go and read it. It's an amazing experience. Yes, it's slow in the beginning, but just wait until the first Tarot Club meetings, and you'll be set. Trust me. You got a whole bunch of waifus to choose from. Susie, best girl. You got a whole bunch of husbandos to choose from. Frank Lee, best boy. At the very least, go check out the Chinese cartoon. This story is a genuine masterpiece. The end.